What's happening, good people? We are here for Macro Dirt Podcast number 19 with Jared D's Nuts Dillian. What's up, my man?
What's up, bonehead?
How are you today? All right?
Pretty good. I'm
Yeah.
here in Nashville.
How
Uh,
awesome. What's the vibe there like?
uh, I just been working. I have a book signing tonight here in Nashville. Going to be a pretty good turnout. I'm excited about it. This is the third book signing for Night Moves. The fourth and final one is actually in my neighborhood, like at my house, in a couple of weeks.
Very cool.
So kind
How's
of
sales? How are sales?
It's been good. I've sold a little over 2,000 copies, which is pretty amazing for a short story collection.
Badass.
Most short story collections only sell about 300 copies, 500 copies. So this has been, a home run.
Awesome.
I got to bug you. Have you read any of it? Sort of.
We're going to have to get through the World Series
All right.
because I sit down with the book in front of me and I watch the baseball game. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
but I will. I promise you I will. My wife started tearing through it, so I'll get some review from her. She might have finished the whole thing already.
Cool.
So I will get a review for sure. The Nashville book signing, hopefully that will go good. Where are you doing that?
I'm doing it in a restaurant called Villa Castriati, which is right. It's a block off of Broadway, so it's right in the middle of the city. So.
Beautiful. When I go to Nashville, I try to spend at least a third of the time at Kid Rock's.
Oh, dude, Kid Rocks is unbelievable. People, now I got to tell you a story, okay?
Go ahead.
Like this bugs me a little bit. Had some people, they were going to Nashville. They're like, where should I go? I'm like, go to Broadway, go to Kid Rock's. They have the best music, hands down. Kid Rock hand selects all the music. He has great taste. They have incredible musicians. Every time I go there, it's amazing. And they're like, I don't want to go there. He's a Republican.
Oh.
And I'm like, this is literally what is wrong with our country today. Where you exclude 50% of the world because you disagree with them politically. Like, look, I went to the concert, right, a couple weeks ago. Dude, Matt Johnson of the is a big time lefty. He's a big time lefty. I don't care. I love his music. If I said I'm not going to listen to like left wing music, all I would be listening to is Leonard Skinner. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly. Right. So, and you'd have a General Lee painted on the front of your Corvette. You know what I mean? Like, dude, I love you for saying that. I really do, because I learned a long time ago that I don't cut off my nose to spite my face for politics.
Yep.
Like ever. That might have been something that you caught yourself doing when you were young and you were kind of uncomfortable, and you look at it and you're like, well, that's dumb. I kind of miss out on that if I have this tight ass.
You miss out on so much of life if you do stuff like that.
Yeah. And what we just got a huge ringing example of on that lane is people like Ranger fans and music fans and Fish fans complaining that there was just a Trump rally in Madison Square Garden. And these people are tweeting like, please clean out the building after the Trump supporters were all there. And I'm just like, dude, that is soft as baby shit. That's how soft you are. Like, if you're worried about the people in the building that you go to watch Ranger games, like, man, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face there too. And I just
is Fish a liberal or conservative band, or are they kind of in the middle? Or
I've been looking for clues from them as to any direction that they lean, and I think that the band is divided, and I think that they give off zero political vibe.
Which is really how you're supposed to do it. That's how you're supposed to do it.
It's so nice to know that you're going to go to their concert and you're not going to get lectured like when you go see Pearl Jam, right? And Eddie Vedder is going to, eventually come up with something that you're going to get lectured on. And it's like, okay, whatever, please sing some more songs. And it
Rage
goes
Against the Machine.
Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that. It's like, you're going to have to deal with it. So that's kind of nice when you know that you don't have to. And you got to I try to carry myself like that as much as I can. I mean, I talked about Trump being ahead in the polls and people came at me for being political in my note. And I'm like, I'm just trying to make us some money. Okay. That's all we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, let's look at it today. Trump 67, Kamala 33%.
All right, look, I gotta jump in here.
Let's go.
I only have one agenda on this podcast. So I pulled up a chart of DJT today.
Ooh,
Guess what?
it's begging to be sold at the highs or something, isn't it?
13 sell on DeMark,
Oh,
DJT.
oh man.
Ding dong highs, ring the bell. That concerns me. That concerns me.
That's fair. That's fair. That's definitely a sentiment indicator. I think that got blown up a little bit by the fact that somebody had a $350 million short bet on it when he was shot in
Yeah.
the ear. So that kind of throws that thing into a tailspin because that short had a cover and it probably put the price at someplace it doesn't belong. But I agree with you. Where's that thing going from here? You know
Yep.
what I mean? After the run it just went on, but I'm not going to touch that trade. I look at the market vibes and I seem to get a Trump victory out of the market vibes. And I'm not trying to be political, right? But can we talk about it? We've got a strong dollar. We've got strong crypto. Crypto's Bitcoin's up 8% in the last week. Gold raging to new highs. Oil keeling over into the high 60s. Rates are higher because we're going to have that, fiscal irresponsibility. I mean, it looks like the markets are okay with what's going on in the polls anyway, without getting too political. Would you agree?
I would agree, but you and I had a conversation the other day offline, and we were talking about the betting odds,
Mm-hmm.
and we both agreed that we would buy Kamala at 33. You know,
100%.
yeah, you're getting 2 to 1. You're getting 2 to 1. Like
Yeah.
you
That's
know,
totally fair because I got to, put it this way. If you may not, if you let it settle, you may not win that bet, but I would be willing to bet between now and a week from now that she's trading better than 33, right?
yep,
Like Trump feels like he's peaking. It feels like he peaked with the way he bookended the weekend, which was sort of brilliant politically because he started off the weekend on Joe Rogan and ended the weekend in the middle of the biggest liberal democratic city in the planet, New York City, in the Garden with, Hulk Hogan, Tucker Carlson, Dana White, Robert Kennedy Jr., the whole Justice League in there. And
Justice League.
yeah, he's ahead on the polls again. It's like he's kind of creeping further away. So while I agree that this looks like a Trump win, it's also kind of peak Trump in the polls right now. And if I were going to bet hedges, have no problem being long Kamala at 33, 35
Yep.
for a
Yep.
trade. No problem at all. I mean, the polls might come out. We could be on election night and it could look dead even. She's not going to be trading 35 in the polls if they look dead even on election night, bro. Right? Like,
Yeah.
so I agree that there's a hedge there. That we spoke about this too. The hedges to a Donald Trump are going to be cheap. So if you want to take some of the other side, those hedges are all cheap right now. What are you feeling? I tell you, I'm losing. I don't mean to be negative because we're kind of in this trade together, but I'm a performance guy, and the only thing that's wearing on my P&L is the commodity space right now. Let's kick the tires on that. What
All
do
right.
we
So
think?
here's what happened. Okay.
Yep.
Because I went through this personally. So oil was trading at 75.
Yep.
Okay. And then Netanyahu announced that he's not going to target Iran's oil infrastructure, right? So oil goes down from 75 to 71 on a rope, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking this is priced in, right? He literally said that's what they're going to do. This is priced in. And then they attacked on Friday night, and they did not attack Iran's oil infrastructure. And then it went from 71 to 67 on a rope.
Right.
And I'm like, I thought it was priced in. Like he said they weren't going to do it, and like they didn't do it, and it went down 5% anyway.
It was already priced in, guys. Come on. Yeah. Dude, I'm telling you that the Justice League in the Garden helped knock crude oil lower. Everybody was like, dude, it's drill, baby, drill, and no war in the Middle East. Like, or calculated, measured response in the Middle East. And everybody was like, I got to get out of crude oil or short more, whatever the case is.
That could be. But anyway, the point is that Monday was a correlated giant drawdown in commodities. And it was because of oil. All commodities went down. The index was like 2%, down 2%. And dude, Monday was a bad day for me, But
Yeah.
I still maintain that no matter what the outcome of this election is, it's going to be bullish for commodities for sure.
And look, people that are listening, I still have it on, so I'm still bullish. I'm complaining to Jared because I'm making him kick the tires on this position to know what he thinks. And when I look at the BCOM chart, the chart is telling me this is another higher low if you got a pair. And if
Yep.
you don't have a pair, then bail out, throw in the towel. And I may not have a pair on this trade. I don't know yet. But if you're going to pick a last ditch effort to buy this thing with great risk reward and have Jared be right, this is why you listen to the Macro Dirt podcast right here, because this is a setup. You look at the BCOM chart and it's the second pullback to the moving averages. And if it holds here, it's going to rocket out of here. But I'm just trying to figure out what's going to get natural gas to run a little higher. I'm trying to figure out what's going to get crude to stay together if it looks more and more like Trump into a drill baby drill. So I'm just nervous and kicking the tires, man. We're risk managers, and these are conversations that we have offline all the time. So we figured we'd have them in front of you.
Yep.
I think it's interesting that with the S&P at 5,900, that the VIX is essentially 20 bid. To me, that's kind of, we're in a higher vol regime right here ahead of the election. People are hedging their book a little bit through this week and things like that. And I think that that's a smart thing to do. But, the stock market looks great right now, man. We've got NVIDIA skimming all-time highs, up 182% year to date. Semis are up 45% year to date. Gold and silver are up over 30% year to date. What's interesting to me is that financials and utilities have caught up, and they're up 25% year to date. So these are the things, coupled with the S&P 2 previous dips that we saw that carved higher lows, that are all giving me the confidence to say, give me a Donald Trump sell the fact sell off, and I'm going to dig my heels into that bitch, and we're going to ride it through the next administration. So that's the trade that I see lining up.
No disagreement here. No
What's that?
disagreement here. One thing I want to
Yeah.
point out, I talked about this in the Daily Dirt Nap. So I've been following the weight loss drugs for like 3 or 4 years, right? And it was funny because I was actually an early adopter of Ozempic because I'm a fat fuck, right? So I actually took Ozempic very early on, and I lost 25 pounds. I stopped taking it because it was expensive. My insurance didn't cover it, and it was like $1,000 a month. And I said, it's a lot of money. So I stopped taking it, and I put most of the weight back on.
Yeah.
So anyway, these stocks have just been a rocket ship. Lately, the last couple months in the Daily Dirt Nap, I'm like, weight loss drugs are fully priced. They're in the public consciousness. They're being sold on Hims. They're being sold on Roman. They're in compounding pharmacies. One interesting stat is that the obesity rate for the country actually went down for the first time in like 30 years because people are on these drugs. I'm like, it's fully priced in. And bam, Eli Lilly reports earnings today down 11%. Big gap down, and this is the bigger issue for the weight loss drugs, especially if Kamala gets elected. I mean, you saw Bernie Sanders at a congressional hearing a couple of months ago. He's like, people need to have these drugs. They're going to be cheaper. The government is going to get involved. They're going to lower the price. They're going to cut the profit margins. It's over. It's over for Lilly and Novo Nordisk. So
that is a great call, man. And you don't have to convince me any longer than looking at the chart and seeing that thing finally touch down on the 200-day moving average and break down through it. Lilly hasn't seen its 200-day moving average since March of this year.
Yep.
So it just went on a nice 10-month run, and it looks like it's got a pretty sturdy top. If you guys want to try taking shots at that on the short side over the next couple of weeks, if you're looking for a weak stock to attack in a weak market, that looks like a pretty good one to me. So I just wrote that one down on my mental trading pad there. I like that for a short target. Do we have any other individual names jumping out at you, Jay? Oh, and just along your channel checks in Ozempic, the last 3 to 4 friends of mine that I've seen and I haven't seen in a while, and I say, man, you look good. Did you lose weight? Ozempic, all 3.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's saturated.
So
for sure.
Snapchat reported earnings today. The stock is up 15%. Snapchat is a fucking dumpster fire of a company, has no corporate governance whatsoever, but they have 450 million users and it's a 22 billion market cap. Like it's actually not super expensive. in the world of social media where you have multi-trillion dollar market. It's a $22 billion market cap, you
Yeah.
know. It looks pretty interesting.
Yeah, it does, and it's certainly bottom feeding at these levels. It's holding the $10 level for 2 years now. It's consolidating and coiling. Maybe if they get going on the upside, that's worth jumping in on, something like that. I'm looking the other way right now, Jared. There's three breakouts that telegraph themselves from the day that Trump pulled ahead in the polls at the beginning of October, and the three subsectors of tech, cybersecurity, cloud storage, and internet. You can look at them break through their flat line on October 1st and keep floating away. Those are the ones that I have on my radar screen, man. If I see a dip in those into the election volatility, those are the ones that I want to buy because I think those breakouts are real. They've been consolidating for a full year, and I think that they can resume their rally for a full year. So we're going to see what happens with those three sectors of tech. But we're trying to give everybody a little bit of guidance as to where to look because we are not going to have another Dirtcast until, well, the next Dirtcast will be next week, and we don't know necessarily if the election results are going to be available. What's interesting on Polymarket, there's a bet that says, will the election be called on November 5th on election day? Guess what that's trading at, JD?
20%?
25%, which I thought was
25%.
way too high. I was
Yeah.
like, there's almost no chance we get you know what I mean? Like the left is so setting us up. All the swing states have announced we're not going to have the results. So that looks like a 25% coupon that you could probably click for free. There's no way we're going to have an election winner on election night. I think it's a 0 chance probability. And that's risk that you can manage, man. You can put that on. And if it looks like unbelievable runaway on the day of, you can cover it and get out. The other bet that I thought that was interesting. What do you think the bet of will Kamala go on the Joe Rogan show? Where do you think that's trading?
I mean, there's not much time left. It's less than a week. I don't see how she's going to squeeze it in. And I think she dislikes Joe Rogan, and also, you know, the most she's been able to manage is like a 5-minute interview unscripted on ABC. Her in a 3-hour interview with her word salads, like it's like
Ain't happening.
I, I, he's going to pick her apart like a carcass.
Yeah, and he even said that he would try to have a conversation with her like a human being. And if you saw the kind of back and forth that, I mean, I've been fading her going on the Joe Rogan. There's no way she survives with Joe Rogan. The narrative has been that she went back to Joe and said, "We want you to come here, and we want to limit it to an hour." And it's like, oh my God, would you stop already? You either go to Austin and go on the Joe Rogan show, or you don't. Right. And once you're starting negotiating with the biggest podcaster on the planet, you're operating from a position of weakness and you have no shot of going on the show anyway. So it's trading at 16 this morning, and there's another 16 free points that you can collect when that expires at 0. But
You know what? You know what show I would love to go on? Like personally, I would love to go on Bill Maher.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I would. I mean, he's a libtard, but he's reasonable,
yeah.
and he's a reasonable guy, and he's funny as shit, and he's super smart. Like, dude, I would love to be on that show and have a conversation with him.
Yeah, he's a fellow Cornell alum, so I try to have a little bit extra respect for him. And there was a time when I just couldn't stand, listen to his kind of same shtick for a while. And since the left has moved so far left, he's kind of stayed where he is and vocally finds himself closer to center.
Yep.
Now, so I give people that realize that sea change taking place around them a lot of credit, at least for having self-awareness. And he's a lot easier to listen to lately.
Yeah.
He's still the opposing view of yours, but he does it sort of tactfully now. And it's a lot better to listen to. I'm still trying to figure out a way to go on the Joe Rogan show, man. If you have any lead, let me know. I want at that studio. I want to talk to Joe. I want to talk to him about us.
Dude, everybody does. Actually,
Yeah.
you know what I heard about him?
What's that?
He doesn't take incoming calls, right? Like if you want to be on the Joe Rogan call, if you call him or email him, you're not getting on. So what he has is a bunch of feeder podcasts, which I don't know what they are, but he has like 10 or 20 feeder podcasts. And if you go on one of those and he thinks it's interesting, then he'll invite you on the show. Peter Zeihan went on Rogan, if you remember.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I was wondering how that happened myself, but good for him for figuring out his way on the show. I mean, he's a fairly relevant guy, I suppose. Um, did you see Trump on Rogan?
I just saw clips. I've
Yeah,
been busy.
it was
Yeah.
good. It was good. Like Trump was very, patient, soft spoken. Joe controlled a lot of the conversation. Trump let him in on some, a few things kind of behind the curtain. And I think that that's one of the things that is really a nail in Kamala's coffin was Trump going on that show. I think that like there were literally Twitter posts about people that were saying like, I can't believe the media convinced me that this guy was Hitler. And I just listened to him on Joe Rogan and he's clearly not. Like, shame on me. And
Yeah.
if you hear one person doing a public mea culpa like that, there's probably a lot more people than that. So he may have converted a lot of people. It got like 35, 40 million views already. So I mean, it's as substantial as it could have been. So we'll see what happens on Tuesday. Any tinfoil hat fears? I saw there were some military exercises around the White House. There are people that are afraid that the Department of Defense now has the ability to exact force on U.S. citizens. All of a sudden, is there anything to worry about in the tinfoil hat category? They just burned one of the election boxes down in Oregon.
I
Any
saw
fear?
that.
Any fears around any chicanery still?
No, I mean, look, there's going to be chicanery for sure, but I think at a small level. Like, the one thing I kind of fall back on is there's like 7 or 8 swing states, right? That are geographically spread all across the country. In order to coordinate some level of fraud, like nationwide, takes an incredible level of coordination and electronic messaging and a paper trail. Like, I kind of don't think that level of coordination is possible. There's fraud in every election at some small scale. Look, if you live in New Jersey, there's fraud in every election. There's fraud in the dog catcher election, right? So, but
So
like in order to do that nationwide, I don't want to say it's not possible, but it's very hard to do. So I'm actually optimistic that the election is going to be somewhat fair. So
yeah, I want to say that after all the public scrutiny that there was, on both sides and back and forth about the last election, that really put it into the sort of people's crosshairs of truth kind of thing. And I think that it'll be much harder with that much attention on it to
yeah,
do something crazy, certainly. And then that sort of gets counterweighted when you listen to somebody like Jimmy Dore on Tucker Carlson, who's also a smart guy and not a panicker or a tinfoil hat person. And he's like, I just get concerned. The CIA has been fixing elections around the world for years. What would stop them from fixing this one if they had to, with something crazy? So that's, I guess, why I keep asking that question. I just desperately want to get through this with no bullshit and an election winner on election day like it was when I was a kid. And then I'll feel a lot better. So let's hope that that's the case. Let's hope that the Yankees pull off another victory in Game 5 tonight. Right, that was a big one. I feel like the series should be tied, but they blew that game by putting in that cold relief pitcher, and
they took Cole out after 82 pitches. They put in Nestor to face Freddie Freeman with the bases loaded. Nestor hadn't pitched in 6 weeks. I love Nestor. He's a gamer,
yeah,
but he hadn't pitched in 6 weeks. He's got to throw strikes.
yeah,
If the bases are loaded,
yeah.
like he should have brought in Tim Hill. So yeah, it should be 2-2. It should be 2-2. I think they have a decent shot tonight with Cole at Yankee Stadium. But then you got to go back to LA and win 2 in LA. Like, it's a very tall order. So
It's too tall order to expect. The only chance that you have is if the ghosts come out for the Yankees again, and they pull this one off, and then they go over there and say we got to win 2 baseball games, and we can do that any time of year. But this Dodgers team is not the Guardians. They don't beat themselves in the second and
yeah,
third inning. And, you can kind of relax after you watch them make their own mistakes. You capitalize on them, and then you pile on with a few more hits. That team's done.
the
You know
other
what I
thing
mean?
is that we need a starter to come in and throw 1, 2, 3 first inning,
Yeah.
right? Clark Schmidt led in 2 runs in the first inning. Luis Heel led in 2 runs in the first inning. You're playing from behind.
Every
You need
time.
a, you need a starter to come in and shut down in the first inning. you know.
Agreed. It's too hard a team to play against at a deficit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they don't make mistakes. They always have runners on base. If you're down, man, it's just like you're always one bat swing away from being buried, which is just not the way that you can get through a World Series playoff. So we'll see what happens. Anything else interesting in the off market space, JD, that we can touch on? What else is going on in the world? It's so hard when all your screens are just blitzed with election crapola and things like that. It's hard to see the forest through the trees, but the markets have been great. There's probably a lot of stress. People are stressed out heading into next week's election, and man, I'm just excited to be on the other side of it. I'll be going to be giving a presentation in Nashville the day before election day, and I'm hoping to just get
Oh, really?
there. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, I'm hoping to get there and back safely and cast my vote and know the results. So that's what
Yep.
I'm really hoping for, but we'll see. I tell you, I don't want to keep people on here. I feel like we covered things in the markets. There's not much to say. We're going to have, a lot to talk about once the election result is known and markets start telegraphing their response and offering us some volatility to play in. And I really think that until then, it's kind of hasta la vagina.
Hasta la vagina, my man.
That's the end. We'll talk later, boys.
See ya.